afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this masterclass by Nicolas Namoradze. This is a result of a wonderful partnership between the Mount Royal Conservatory and Honen's piano competition. Nicolas is the winner, the most recent grand prize winner of the Honen's, brilliant pianist, musician, and composer. And we're thrilled to welcome him back. We've had him a couple of times for master classes. We're thrilled to welcome him back. And without any further ado, I'd like to invite Nicolas and Agata Skudimowska to come for the first work, which is Beethoven 32 Variations in C minor.
Brava. That was excellent. I think you have a great grasp of the piece, and you play it very well. And there are many things that I found convincing, so well done. This is a really strange piece. It's weird. I think, let's be honest, it's very condensed, and I think one of the most important things to keep in mind here, Beethoven is a composer that was constantly experimenting with form. If you take Brahms, you're not going to find many formal innovations in the sonata structures, for example. They will be largely around the same mold. Yes, in his later sonatas, he does sometimes depart from some conventions, but Beethoven, on the other hand, in every piece is reinventing what the sonata could be, what the variations could be. So I think it's really important to always ask the question, what is he trying to get at in this piece? What is the crux of the kind of compositional interest that he brings to this? And I think it is in certain senses a really minimalist piece. You think it's a very condensed theme, and the harmony does not stray, apart from a couple of times, from this very rigid structure, right? So he's really, like Stravinsky did in his later years, reducing the tools he has at his disposal to communicate. He cannot veer off into a, I don't know, the F sharp major or something like that. He really has a couple of things with which he can play to communicate certain things. He has texture, dynamics, articulation, and so forth. So those become extra important in the situation because you don't have lots of room to play in some other things, right? So what does that mean? I think sometimes, first of all, three general things. First of all, I think maybe you are too used to this piece and you're not surprised enough by some of the strange things that happen and by the radical nature of the piece. I think you tend to smoothen the rough edges out a bit. You make it a bit friendlier, a bit prettier than it should be. That's the first thing. The second thing related to this is, especially with the dynamics, I find that there's a tendency for you to have like a general quiet dynamic level and a general loud dynamic level, but there should be more variation in those. And Beethoven gives you a lot of clues. Like what you tend to do sometimes, like if you have a big chord and it's forte, it's like really loud, but then you have some passage work which is written fortissimo and it's mezzo forte-ish because it's harder to play loudly there, So don't play dynamics out of convenience. You have to suffer for the fortissimi, even if they're in a place that's hard to play. And if it's easy to, whack the piano, if it's just forte, you need to have it relative to the fortissimi. And, those clues from the composer are really important because they give a certain kind of dramatic purpose to the textures, right? There's a reason why he wanted this to be fortissimo. It plays a certain role in the structure. So veering away from those proportions makes the inner structure of the piece lose some of its tension. And I think the third thing, we'll come to this in specific spots, but I have a feeling like you're a bit afraid of short notes and afraid of silences and have a tendency to kind of want to bridge the gaps all the time. And if there is like a rest, you want to like pedal through it or make the notes longer. I don't know if like you saw this somewhere. I mean, there could be any number of reasons. And of course, you might not agree with me, but it seems like you know what I'm talking about. You do know what I personally wouldn't agree with this. I think these rests and the silences are just as important and just as pregnant and full of musical meaning. And we don't need to kind of try to, they're not awkward silences, like in a room when you don't have anything to talk about. They're there for a purpose. Think of it much more as a kind of theater piece in drama where you need that space to articulate what you're about to say. A lot of the time in this piece, the gestures grow out of the silences. And I think it's important to articulate those silences more. Now, for example, in something like the beginning, I think even the way you're voicing the left hand has to be done in a way so that you make this incisiveness clear. It's a little bit flat and friendly. Maybe towards the top, maybe, but like if you even it out, then it just doesn't really, I'm not saying play much louder than you do, but the quality of the attack and the voicing can change. Yeah, better. Yeah, so the thing is, I don't want to, like these notes shouldn't be like the second note of a two-note slur. And the way you're playing it, like this note, bum, ba-bum, it needs to be very like crisp and articulate, and these notes have their own wedge on them, right? This doesn't mean only that they're short, but it does mean that, but also that they have a certain significance, right? They cannot be light. So I don't know, I mean, you can play it with one finger, you can do it with two, but I don't know, are you doing 4-3 here? Yeah. That's it. I would not advise that because that's like a recipe for disaster in this moment. Like you like no matter how much, yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want. I mean, doing it with one finger works great. I mean, you really get the articulation you need. Yeah, I mean, and like you can't just kind of slide into the bam. You need you can do that. You can do whatever you want. Even if you did, you need to be able to feel the attack better, right? Can you try it? I don't know. Better. Yeah, but Beethoven marks very clearly the slur. The slur doesn't continue. No. The slur doesn't continue into the G. Look in the score. Yeah. Brapam. A little bit of space, and I'm not saying that you should break it and like manipulate the rhythm too much, but because that's the rhythm, that's the gesture at the beginning, and he is now tying more and more to the previous note, but it's the same pa-pam, pam pa-pam, pam pa-pam, pam pa-pam, pam pam. Yeah, it's the same gesture, just ornamented. It doesn't become wah 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 all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Something about the first note. But you know what I'd advise? A rhythmic thing as well. More space. 1, 2, 3, 1. This should feel like a long space, you know. Really articulate those spaces. Now, and I mean, this is crazy stuff. I mean, and I mean, this is really Beethoven at his, you know, most intense. So don't put a ribbon in his hair. I mean, even you're pedaling through. Try to make it. Sorry, I'm being such a pain about this first note, but you did it better the just before. Just try it. It's getting there. I'd still suggest. You might not agree with me on this. I think these are a little bit, you know, you're giving them more space than it needs rhythmically. Tam, pam, 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 pam. This isn't. This is a kind of this isn't. Yeah, this isn't Rachmaninoff where you would want the smaller notes to be, you know, more full than the longer ones. In this kind of style, the long notes become fatter and the short ones become even skinnier. That's how the rhythmic proportions would work in the classical style. So pam, 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 because then we don't recognize that this is the same gesture. Long, short, long. You know, that's long, ya, pam, pam, da, dum, da, the audience needs to understand that. That's the basic template. One last thing, and I promise that we will move on. In the classical style, generally, notes are a certain fraction of what's written in terms of their length. In slower pieces, in heavier music, it's going to be longer. In lighter ones, it's going to be shorter. So in something like there's no reason why you have to tie all this together, especially when there's no slur. There can be a bit of air. I mean, that would be much more within this style of, you know, writing. You're playing it a little bit like late 19th, early 20th century. Kind of, it's almost like a different way of reading the score. Better. Like that, you really need space there. Don't let this bleed into the one. It has to. You have to articulate the rest as sharply as any of the notes here. And good. But I mean, really, piano. I mean, you know, after the forte, there should be. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's better. Keep going. Yeah. What does leggermente mean? Not to put you on the spot. Yeah. Is that light? No. Sorry. Yeah, I don't just. You don't need to play staccatissimo, but like there has to be a little bit something like yeah, you know. What I'd advise, yeah. Can you play it again? Yeah. Okay. So how do you practice this? How would you practice this if you were practicing? Slowly? Legato and slowly. Okay, so first of all, it doesn't need to be legato. Secondly, what I just want, you know, if you don't want to practice it here, I understand. Like, it's a little bit of a weird situation when everyone's looking. But what I notice is that you get to the notes quite late. And that's hard because you reach the note in the last moment and you don't have much time to control it, and you also find which note you're supposed to play in the last moment. When you practice, I would really suggest you practice getting to the notes in advance, because when we practice, we should not only be practicing hitting the right notes, but all of the movements associated in between, including the arm and the wrist and whatever the hell you're doing. So when you have a change of hand position, don't practice like this, that you like get there in the end, but really get used to being there already. So, and when you speed this up, your hand will get used to moving into position much earlier than you need to play the note, and then it'll be very safe, and it'll be more even as well. Because now I keep getting a accent on the E because you're kind of crashing into it. But if you really practice getting there in advance, then it's 100% guarantee that you're going to get it and you'll have time to control it. So if you notice that, okay, this is a little bit difficult, you have to think, okay, what is the movement that I need to make this happen? And not just think, oh, I just need to practice it for another 20 hours. Because no, you can do this in 20 minutes if you think about it smartly. So always try to reconsider what it is you're doing, and don't let yourself fall into a habit of doing the same thing over and over again, hoping it'll just make it better. So I just noticed, and really close to the keys. And I think what will give the articulation that necessary air is just a little bit of retraction. Not curling the fingers, but if you're doing that, you won't get the air. Do you notice with the hands, just slightly? Yeah. So you are essentially playing legato. You're not lifting and hitting the keys from the air, but it's just with the way in which you're using the fingers to create the articulation. And you'll have much more security, and you'll still have that feeling of legato, but you'll have the necessary lightness. Yeah? We don't need to work through it now, but that's just a piece of advice how you can. You want to just keep playing through from here? Yeah, so yes, it's piano, but if I weren't looking at the score, I'd think she just played this chord a little louder, maybe by accident. The sforzato shouldn't sound accidental. The way you articulate it, the voicing, something should say, Yeah, but you're way too loud here. This is really heavy already. That's all you need. Yeah, but you notice it's quite heavy here, yeah? Mm. That's it. Yeah, yeah. You see, you notice you were kind of crescendoing into the sforzato now, yeah. But it should be. That's it. But you can stay totally still. It doesn't need preparation. On the contrary, what's shocking about this is that on the second beat, and this is of course something from the theme that he keeps kind of reiterating. It's a motif. So yeah. Anyway, I see you're kind of picking up on this. So I don't need to repeat the same thing. Let's just keep going. Yeah. Yeah, and then when you change hand position, the same thing, getting there in advance, yeah? Yeah, I think that's now, that's a new element, and don't just walk past it as if nothing happened, yeah? You can do what you like. I think just generally the harmonies can be painted more. They all have their own profile, and that's all you have here. We don't have modulations. All we have are the changes between these harmonies. If you're in a sonata form and you're moving from, I don't know, like in the Hammerklavier from B flat major to G major, you already have so much. You don't need to make a huge point of every individual chord in the middle. But here, again, Beethoven has restricted the drama to a very concentrated framework. So we really need to operate within that. And this is an enormous event here. You know what I mean? So you can do what you like, make it more, make it less, but something. And again, what tools do we have? A bit of articulation, dynamics, balance. Which hand do you bring out? Maybe you think, this is all. There's a lot you can play with. But one reason why I would be inclined to think that it's better to err on the shorter side here is that you have a legato here. And if you don't, it doesn't become clear that this is something different. Yeah? Yeah. Can you guess what I'm gonna complain about? Yes, exactly. I mean, because here again, this is orchestration, right? You have whatever, a bassoon or whatever, and then and this is again, we have very restricted tools here. Set rhythm, and this is where the drama is now. The difference between the voices. You can really practice. Yeah, and exaggerate it, make it shorter, and then, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and also just generally like adding that crispness to the articulation will really help. I think it needs more space. Yeah. Again, like for my taste, I think, especially here, you can definitely use even just voicing to the top a little bit will make the sforzatos cut through a bit better. And then the same thing here. I don't want to insist that you play all of them much more loudly. That's not necessary, but the balance can change and the articulation can change. And also you have a little bit of a tendency, if I weren't looking at the score, I'd sometimes think I wouldn't be able to, yeah, it is an eighth note, but it's the end of this shape, right? So it is going to be in a light position. And also the rhythm. The gestural shapes will always affect the rhythm. It's not taka taka ta 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 ta. It won't be badakadam tiara badakadam tiara badakadam tiara. These will create more space in between the individual gestures. I think you don't need to be in such a hurry, bum, bum, bum. There's a bit of, because, and you end up with an accent. You just give yourself a, yeah. Really practice repeating notes without having to lift the key to the full. Because look, there's a double escapement on the piano, so You can play legato. Yeah, yeah, better. Yeah, and then you find that point. Much better. Good. Generally, in this kind of style, when you have a ta 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 tam kind of figure or anything, you think even later in like Schumann, there is more space after the initial beat, and then you move into the next one across, right? So it doesn't have like ba, ba, yeah, this kind of thing. So don't be in a hurry. You have space here. The one thing I'd say here is that you end up with a bit of an accent on the first chord, where it's fortissimo to the end. So yeah, rather than that, But in rhythm, and maybe on the next beat as well, so it's clear that just a little bit, so that we know, just to explain to the listener what's going on, The pedal isn't doing you many favors, Can you try just really grabbing the keys? Yeah, that's a yeah, that's a different sound. Do you hear the difference? But that each of them has that articulation, rather than like just kind of jamming your fingers into the keys. Okay. And but also you still want to voice it, so you're ending up with a lot of kind of murkiness. Much better. Okay, and that really becomes clear. You know what's going on. I know exactly what the rhythm is if I hear that kind of articulation as well. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, it can become a bit more tortured. Taka 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 yeah, pa 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 yeah. Why are you losing the tension? Yeah, pa 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 pum. There's no decrescendo. Yeah, exactly. And then the contrast with the piano becomes so much more dramatic, rather than just like trying to make a nice segue. There are no segues here. Okay, sometimes, but most of the time you have these very stark juxtapositions. Okay, does that make sense? I don't know. I guess we started a little bit late, so let's go on for like one variation or two, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah, something has to happen here that's a little bit different. I mean, there's a change in pattern, change in everything. Like, don't make it seem like that's part of one shape. But you're really preparing it. You're crescendoing into the sforzato. You see this and you want to make it smooth, but it's that's the gesture, right? Yes. So basically, this idea of the radical nature of the piece will be communicated in each of these small gestures, in how you're calibrating your fortes, how you are kind of transitioning into piano suddenly. All these little decisions you make are going to affect kind of the dramatic narrative of the piece, what it is you're communicating. So what you really need to start out with is thinking again, as we discussed at the beginning, what is special and different about this piece? What are the tools the composer has at their disposal to communicate what it is they're trying to do? And then how do I, as an interpreter, bring those features out? And that mindset, when you've decided, okay, this is the kind of thing I need to communicate to the listener, will affect all the individual decisions you make. And that's how they will then become part of an organic conception and not just like, I felt like doing this here and I felt like doing that there. They will all form a certain kind of interpretation at the end of the day, okay? You're doing great and you're playing it really well. I think that just thinking through some of those, crucial moments will really help bring it together into a kind of coherent statement that you want to make with this piece. Okay? Great job. Please. Okay, so we have Chopin now. Michael with Chopin.
Schumann in that.
Sorry?
It was Brahms and Schumann.
Yes, yes. We talked about a number of things. Great. Okay. Yes, wonderful. Bravo. Very sensitive. Um, and many beautiful moments. Well done. So, should I put this here? Yeah. Okay. Um, are you familiar with the word hierarchy? Hierarchy. So basically, some things being more important than others, right? We hopefully don't live in a hierarchical society. We live in a democracy, but when it comes to notes, you don't want democracy. You have to be very anti-democratic when it comes to the notes. Okay, you need to really decide what's important and what's not. I think that generally speaking, if there were one thing I'd say about what I think you'd want to do in this piece is to make those decisions more clearly as to what's important and what's not, and make that clear to the listener. For example, in the opening section, it should be clear to the listener which of the grace notes or even which of the ornamental or ornamentational notes are are structural and which are peripheral. And now I kind of can't tell. And sometimes these little decorations end up just being on the same level as everything else. I can't tell in rhythm or in dynamics which one is actually the harmony note. They kind of blend in and it becomes quite unclear. In the central section, a lot of the time your main pillars of the harmony and the actual structure of the section are less clear to the listener than all this stuff. You really need to hear, and then everything else is rumbling in the middle. But if I don't hear this chorale, I have no clue where I am. I'm literally drowning at sea. And you want to have a boat. Yes, it's stormy, but we need a boat. It's no good without anything to stay afloat on. And then when the opening theme returns, hierarchy now really important in the verticalities in the textures, because I don't hear the theme. I just hear just a lot of stuff everywhere, you know? So you just like horizontally, which beats are more important than which other ones, vertically, which notes in the texture are more important than other ones, in a melodic shape, which ones do I need to highlight, in any kind of ornamentation, which notes are structural, the harmony notes that I need to hear, which ones do I not need to hear. You need to really make those decisions everywhere, because otherwise it becomes like, you had a nice fruit salad where you have some more flavorful things and then you have lettuce, and you like put them all into the blender and made a smoothie, and now it's all the same. You need to have those individual variations and differences. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's begin. I think, yes, mezza voce means medium voice. It doesn't mean be masked. Okay, I think you really need to sing more generally at the beginning, and this is very operatic. It's dramatic. This isn't even a nocturne. This is like a mini ballad. I mean, this is really a life and death kind of thing, and you have to portray that at the beginning. Don't be shy. And also don't be chained to the left hand. Practice the left hand separately with a very steady rhythm, and the right hand can go ahead and behind. That's the rubato that Chopin himself championed. Don't let the left hand be a kind of a chain to which the right hand cannot escape from. Okay? Just try it. So my question here would be, so where is this is one phrase, right? Where would it lead? Where is the central point of it, let's say? Where do you want to go? Where do you think is the main weight of the phrase?
So I think
You want to go there?
at least
Okay, yeah, that's a good argument. I might say, and then the rest disappear. But you can do what you like. But I don't understand why on the way to the place you think is important, you start very nicely, and all of a sudden you really drop. You give me the impression you're going somewhere, and then we're kind of retreating. I'm not really sure I agree with that. This is one line. Yes, there are these rests. This is the start of this downward descent. Don't cut it, I think. There tend to be lots of starts and stops here. I think you want to think big, okay? Because this piece is like that, okay? Good, better. Keep it going. Yeah, I mean, but you're the one who says you want to go here, but you're retreating again. Don't be afraid. And then, and whatever you want to do there, you can really continue moving, and a little bit of this freedom in, the left hand very, but the right hand, and then you can then go down, okay? Good. I don't know. This isn't a two-note phrase. This is the beginning of a very long phrase. Chopin has marked the better part of 3 bars in here. If you're going, it sounds like a sigh. I think, that's what's gonna come. But here, this is, it's the beginning of something that keeps going. So give the listener a roadmap. It's like Google Maps is telling you that instead of the destination being in a kilometer, it stops you every meter and tells you that the coffee shop is right there. It isn't. There's still a long way to go. Okay? And let's keep going. So just play this and keep moving. Good. Much better. Okay, so what's the character of this piece, in your opinion?
It's quite dark,
Dark, good.
a little depressing.
Depressing, sure. Do you think it's small or big?
Pretty big for a nocturne, yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
Okay. So this isn't like I'm gonna lock myself in my room kind of dark, but I'm shaking my, fists at the clouds kind of dark, right? I mean, if you think about the middle section, this is as, I don't know, tempestuous as any nocturne gets, right? I mean, the sheer scale of the drama here, this is huge, okay? This is really a massive thing. So that should affect the expression as well. I just feel somehow that this opening is a little timid. You're shy in the sound as well. It's as if this is, I don't know, a very intimate and like soothing piece, but it's not. That's really not the character of this. I'm quite sure of that because look at the middle section. It just wouldn't make much sense. This is, almost Wagnerian, and a great singer comes on stage, and there is this breadth to it, this nobility and elegance. Something about, you really need to let the sound grow a little bit, and these phrases really need to ring with a bit more of a concentrated legato. You need to listen more to how each note decays so you can follow it along better. I feel like there are too many little stops and twists and turns rather than this sense of continuity, and the sound is just a little bit muted. I really think you need to broaden things a little bit. Okay? Try it from the second phrase. This one. Good, better. Look, the thing is that having more notes doesn't mean we need to interrupt the pulse. You can. This is the structure. This is what we should hear. And then whatever happens in the middle, scales, arpeggios, or whatever has to fit in somehow to this structure. If you need to take more, if you need to start this earlier, please do. If you need to, work around with this, please do. But don't, you know what I mean? It has to fit within this framework because this, it's almost like the ticking of a grandfather clock. Like this is stone, Yes, you can move it around a little bit, but there has to be a solidity here, and it cannot be so easily manipulated by a little bit of figuration that you didn't have enough time to fit in. Figure out a way. That's the structure. So that stuff is ornamental. That's what we should hear, not? That's not the melody. It doesn't go ya da da bo go di dim. It's ya da dum ram. That's it. So even when we have this decorative stuff, some things are more important and some things are less important. And you need to make those proportions clear. You want to try this? From here. And you know, you are taking, it's fine to take time, but you are stopping the pulse again. So if you want to play these faster, then if you want to do that. But you have to find a way not to let it unnecessarily stop the pulse. If there's a good reason for it, yes, but there's nothing here that calls for it. Okay? So go from here. You have a longer way to go. You start each phrase well and then lose the legato very soon. And the legato not in articulation because you are tying the notes together, but in the way you're controlling the dynamics. It drops very soon all the time. You start and it kind of disappears. That's the phrase. So don't lose the shapes too soon, okay? It's getting better, so just try from here. Good. Better. Good. Good. And actually, this is the first piano here, which means that the mezza voce is not piano, it's more, right? But until then, if I didn't know what was in the score, I'd think it said piano. And if you don't play this with the adequate intensity, this piano just seems like more of the same thing. But it should feel like a surprise, you know. You know, wow, you know, that's something else. When you first played it, it just sounded like the same dynamic marking as everything else. Okay? So, some clues as to how to approach it. Let's keep going. So this that's the structure. Well, I mean, it's not even the structure. The structure is that's the main pillar, but that's the fundamental ornament, let's say. And that little thing has to fit in a way so that I know that the last E flat is really what counts. And now it's a little bit, it's just very kind of, I don't want to say approximate, but it's hazy. I just don't really know what's going on there. Okay? Do you want to just try this? Yeah, better. Now, it doesn't have to be so sharp. It doesn't have to be a mordent like Mozart. It can be like that. But there has to be a little bit more lightness with those notes so that that's clear. Okay? Otherwise, I'm just kind of floating around in goo. Okay? Okay, let's I think, and you need to make more of a, this has to feel a little bit more special, I think. It sounds like all of a sudden we have these different harmonies. So bring out the colors, yeah. Good, very good. Much better. Good. Don't lose too soon. We still have this going on for a bit. It goes. Don't let that happen. And then, like, generally it happens that you are losing the intensity at the beginning of the phrases. You need to keep it going a little longer, okay? As a general remark. Okay, let's keep moving and get into the. Good. Yeah, it's basically the same tempo, you know? There should be a bit of a difference. Either you play the opening a little bit more flowing and then this in this tempo, or you need to hold this a little bit back. It's important to the structure of this piece that there is that difference. And I think it might be better for you just to play this a little bit more leisurely, because you'll have more time for all the stuff that happens in the middle, and that will help. Just allow yourself to relax a little bit. Like, you can feel the beat in the same way, but they're just a little bit bigger, a little bit, yeah, more spacious, okay? I need to hear. I need to hear the theme. Here now, hierarchy in voicing. Everything, you can't make it totally flat. You have to bring out now, you know, the theme. Otherwise, I just don't hear what's going on. Better, much better. Yeah, I mean, sotto voce doesn't need to mean pianissimo. I don't know, like there's I mean, you don't need to play so loud, but just with a little bit more substance to the sound. Otherwise, I mean, this isn't, you know, Debussy La Cathédrale engloutie, you know, have you played it?
No, but
You know it, like it's just in the mists, and no, this is very present. This is the beginning of this great chorale, you know. It's you know, it should sound almost like human voices, you know, not the rustling in the trees. A little bit more. Much better. Good. Yeah, and now you can really have the pianissimo. Yeah, otherwise, if you do it at the beginning, then, you know, you're giving away what's going to be interesting. But at the same time, don't let these turn into a kind of Debussyan wash of sound. It's really not Debussy, and it sounds a little bit like it. Okay, you really need. You need to hear just these pillars. Yes, they are arpeggiated, but the arpeggiations shouldn't be an excuse for approximateness. There should be actually this enormous intensity here, because the danger is already present in these chords. It's just not yet here, but it should be already latent. Okay, so let's just keep going. We don't have so much time. From the pianissimo. much better now. You've made an effort not to lose the chords. I really appreciate that. I just think that when you're playing these octaves, I hear a lot of this. And I noticed that you're actually kind of slapping these, and I don't think that's really the sound you want here, especially because he actually writes slurs. So really practice being able to repeat the octaves without needing to do the duck flaps. Okay, you know, these are really legatissimo. They should feel, and also even voicing outward, so you don't want to have that. Okay. More concentration in the sound and more closeness to the key, so you get less slapping and also a more controlled balance in the chords, in the octaves. Okay, you can really practice like I showed in the previous session. You know, not fully releasing the notes in order to repeat them. You can do them in the distance before you let go completely, okay? And that will help you create this more concentrated, less slappy sound, okay? Do you want to just try it?
So
Yeah, something like that. And but don't let it become too heavy. And the octave eight, you say same kind of thing, right? You don't want to be doing it like that. It needs this extreme closeness. Okay, so the same kind of thing here. You know, here's the beat. Ram hierarchy again. If you go ram then I don't know where the downbeat is. Do you want to just try that moment? You just go from there. I mean the previous bar. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's the idea. Okay, so keep going. Yeah, really need to make that. Yeah, it's. Those. Of course, this is kind of a transition note. So. Yeah, or is it? It's probably B natural. So the chorale should always be clear. It shouldn't be like, oh, I barely managed to reach that note, and it was kind of half effort. Okay? Do you want to go from there? Yeah, if you go then I'm losing the beat. Yeah. Ram ba da da. Yes, you can do it with time. But if this ends up being louder than this, then we're distorting the proportions, and actually the accent is on the beat and not on this. So yes, you can take time if you want ram pa ba yada da yada, and then you have the accents. But if you go ya pa bam, then I'm like, okay, so where was one? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Okay, try it again, and we keep going. Good. It's much better, and you're voicing this much better. I don't know whether we should trust Paderewski with the pianissimo there, because it's not in the original edition. I can understand the drop in volume, but it's a little bit fishy, that pianissimo, honestly. Even if you want to play it quietly, don't lose intensity. Don't let it become, this texture is very busy and very agitated, and he marks agitato. So make sure that there is this the darkness hasn't disappeared. We haven't moved into fairyland. Maintain that, depressiveness, as you said, but no, not a passive depressivity. Okay, keep the fire in there. Okay, I think we're out of time, but it's starting. I think you've picked up on what I was trying to get at very fast. So great job, and if you think that's what you want to do with the piece, then keep going in that direction. Okay, great job. Great job, thanks. And now, Mephisto time. Which one is which one? Okay, I've got a better one. That's okay. That's it's what you can find on IMSLP, the New Hungarian List Edition, which is the most modern or text for this. So, okay. Henle is doing some new stuff, but yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. Go ahead. great. I had a lot of fun listening to this.
Thank you.
So, great. No, you really command the piece, and clearly you like the piece very much as well. You love it. So, and I can feel that. So I really enjoyed it too. Even when I didn't agree with what you were you were doing. And okay, I think there are primarily two categories of things, two kinds of things that I would approach differently. One is your treatment of sonority and texture generally. And the second is how you're treating the dramatic narrative, like how you're constructing the story. You know what's the story of this piece? You know what's going on here? Have you, first of all, ever played the piano this would have been written for? The kind of instrument?
The historical one, yeah, the period, yeah.
Erard instruments.
I played on some players.
On some players.
Yeah.
It's a bit different here. This would have written for Erard's. But anyway, one thing you'll notice there is that the pedal and pushing down the pedal is not an excuse for, okay, whatever articulation is there doesn't matter anymore because it's all going to sound the same, which sometimes happens with the modern piano, right? If Liszt writes, even if it's going to be pedaled, you are going to hear that on one of his instruments. You will hear the difference in articulation. The pedaling is much lighter because it's straight strung, so you don't have the kind of construction you have here. You don't have this bleeding of textures. And I feel that sometimes, actually a lot of the time, you put the pedal down, like, you're pressing the gas in the car, and then in the, what's now going on, articulation-wise, textures-wise, balance-wise, is a little bit of a no man's land. It shouldn't be. I think you need to be really, really careful in how you're building these textures. Otherwise, this piece can get so messy. It just like there are these enormous aggregates of sound and just God knows what's going on in the middle, right? You need to have that clarity, no matter how big the texture is and no matter how much pedal there is. And I also think you have a tendency to, just to smoothen a lot of stuff. If you think this is the devil taking over a folk fiddle. You've heard folk fiddles, they're rough and they're grating and they're scratchy and they're not pretty at all. You can get prettier in the middle, of course, but I also think you're a little too pretty in the middle. It sounds harmless, and this is not harmless. This is, what's going on in the middle here, okay? So there has to be that intensity. Because actually that is where most of the, forgive the pun, but the action is happening, right? It's in the middle of the piece. So don't let that be a moment of relaxation. Actually, that's really where the most interesting part is happening. So, and then the whole piece is built around that central section. And I feel a little bit like that's the chance for you to rest your fingers because you were playing, and it shouldn't be. You don't lose the intensity there because that's very much the point of this piece. It's how we lead into the central section and then how we lead out of it. Okay. So, and then if you can control the sonorities better, then there will be more of a contrast in the tone, and that will help you just build the narrative of the piece better. Okay, like even at the beginning, I basically cannot hear the upper notes anymore because there's so much going on there, and it's very easy for this to swell. You really need to start like cutting down the sound as you go up in the left hand, and then the lower notes of the right. Otherwise, it's just a problem we have with the modern instrument. You wouldn't have this issue on that instrument. You'd hear it very clearly, but here we really have to compensate for the way the piano is built. Okay? Just, yeah. Your upbeat is a bit approximate. I need to hear the one as a rest. You don't need to like make a sound, but like, good. It's hard. It's on the violin. It's almost like, it's when a violinist wants to play a chord together and they need to break it slightly. This is completely a string effect. Play it together and then just break it, just as if it's a movement of the wrist. And then you'll get that kind of sound if you focus up. very strict. Yeah, bum, bum, 2 and good. You have to make these as short as possible because at this speed, they blend into yabo babo, but yeah. Good. Are you sure it's the same gesture? All of a sudden, and actually, list marks the pedal here. I'm not convinced by why you need to pedal through the rests there. Yeah. Good, better. And again, I'm not an anti-pedal person. Please use it for sonority, not to change the length of the notes. If you need, for the sound, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not saying punch the piano, but you need to be, you need that. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Good. Yeah, I mean, this kind of thing, again, I'm not going to stop you for every moment and drive you crazy, but like, this is the kind of thing where, again, it's a sonority issue. The piano has problems here. It's going to be quieter. It's going to be louder here. So I know you are trying to apply the same amount of pressure, but it sounds like a diminuendo instead of a crescendo because this is the problem we have with the instrument. So either you really practice so that you can hammer the upper notes, or you drop a little bit so that it feels like a crescendo, okay? Good. Yeah, you pedal in a way, and what I suggest, if you really want a good flutter pedal, lift your heel, and then you have complete. Yeah, it makes it so much easier. I mean, literally, I'm just like pivoting and you can make it so much faster than if your heel is on the ground. Then your calves are gonna kill you. Just lift your heel. If you don't have much space because you're squished, you should be able to basically like pluck the notes so you have that. You were focusing on the legs. I know it's a hard job. Yeah. Good. It's getting much better. Yeah, you're listening more carefully, I think, to the sonority. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is getting much better. I would just suggest, whenever you feel like you barely have enough time to get there, so you just like crash into something. I know it's hard, but still you need to balance the chords. Otherwise, it just sounds like this, and it's like hard to tell what the notes are. Even it always. It should never just be like how your hand lands. All of them have to be calibrated. Okay. Personally, I think you're stopping too much. I don't agree with the myriad ritenuti everywhere, and like and like I don't quite understand why here, because actually there's a crescendo into the next phrase. If anything,
It's crescendo, and like when I'm too fast, it's not fun anymore.
okay, that's true. But you can take time without making the intensity drop, right? You can wait. You can wait a little bit after the arrival of the of the bar. I'm not saying become a machine. And you can actually play with time in rubati and pulling and pushing a bit. But if you do a formal ritenuto, that's different. And that actually sounds more strict and less scherzando. It has the opposite effect of what you want. You can be more spontaneous, more flexible. But if you're like, okay, I'm gonna slow down now, and then start again, it sounds more like poor Mephisto's arm is getting tired, and his arm is not gonna get tired. But okay, you get what I'm saying. It just, I don't think it quite fits even what you're trying to do here. I mean, if you want, you can tampergam. You can take totally, and that's going to fit within the character of the piece. But if you go, of course you didn't do this now, but I'm saying, I think the ritenuti are not helping you. Good. Yeah, I mean here, now you sound stressed out because you're moving from, but you're moving from fortes to pianos without even a bit of space, and you have space. No one is beating the metronome over your head. You can absolutely do that, Let me tell you something. We always have more time than we think. When we're playing and we're in the middle of something, we get stressed out and we think we're taking time and we're not. Exaggerate it. Do more than you think is. Just try. Just like. That felt completely in time. Didn't feel like you were taking too much at all, because it takes time for the sound to clear. For us, it feels like, oh, I'm out of, but not at all. To the listener, this is perfectly okay. It's always a big kind of, like your consciousness works differently when you're playing. And you always have to think that you have more time than you think, and it's gonna sound more in time than you think, always. If you think you're really in time, you're probably rushing. It's a good rule of thumb. If you think you're really like on it, you're probably rushing ahead. If you think you're kind of holding back, you're probably in time. That's just like generally a good rule of thumb. Okay, let's keep going. Perfect. Good. Don't rush. That's fine. That happens. I think, like, what ends up happening is you tend to get fast and really get into it, and then sometimes you do a big ritenuto to try to hold yourself back, and then same kind of thing. It's like a horse you're trying to control, and then you hold. What you want is more comfort in the pulse. Less extreme ritenuto sometimes to compensate for the rushing ahead, but more of a kind of feeling of, you know, again, it's a dance. This isn't like we're on a rocket ship hurtling towards Mars. Sometimes, really, I'd suggest practice this in your head, walking around your room. You know, you can walk on that speed and just feel the amount of space you have. Because also what happens is when you practice more, it gets easier, but you think it should feel difficult. So you keep pushing the speed because you don't realize that now it can feel easier to play. So you keep thinking that, oh, what you're used to is how difficult it should feel. So you keep getting faster and faster as it becomes more comfortable. It happens very often. So you can really take more time than you think. You can practice with the metronome if you really want, but it doesn't have to be an external thing. It should be an internal thing. And imagining it in your head, walking around your room, singing it, dancing it, whatever. Or even, sitting at the piano, closing your eyes, imagining the keyboard, imagining the pulse you want, and imagining your hands, how it would feel in your hands if you had that space. It's gonna feel different in your fingers than what you're doing now. You're gonna feel like, oh, this is so comfortable. Just try, like, let's go from here, and then all that, where are we?
The first one, right?
Yeah, first one. What might be, you miss out the middle one, because that will concentrate the pulse. Then you just kind of, and those are actually the most important beats, 1 and 3, and feel that pulse almost like a heartbeat. Better. Good. So I don't want to stop you everywhere. Just be careful when you have repeated chords that the sound just starts to really accumulate very, very, very much, and you just need to really be careful with clearing the air and also voicing them, so you don't want to hear that. Okay, and the same kind of thing in the left hand here. It just becomes like the roar of the subway when it shows up. Okay, you don't want that. You need that like pasta that's al dente. It needs the bite all the time. No matter how thick and heavy the chord, you need to have that clarity. Okay, so let's just keep going and get to the middle section a bit. I hear a lot of that. Little, yeah, no. It needs to break out more. The texture has changed a little bit now, and I still feel like, the really hard thing about this piece is that it's very easy to get a lot of momentum from the energy, and then you just crash into the next thing without realizing it's something different. You should be able to change the quality of the sound and the texture and the bounce very rapidly. what happens at the moment is that the sections are bleeding into each other. You get a lot of energy and then it's piano, but there's still kind of remnants of the energy, and then it takes a while for you to warm up again. So these very radical changes, just stop in between them and then get them closer so that you can switch very fast. Okay? Just as a general thing. All of a sudden, this is a very different kind of line. Here we had something, all this doubling. It was very different. Now that's a very different kind of material. But it's better. The sound is better. Yeah, better. I think when you see a diminuendo, save most of it for the end. Always. Because you lose the intensity very fast, and then it's like we're waiting around for something to happen. You have to keep it going because there are many bars of just it's a little bit like, okay, this isn't the most interesting thing in the world. But if you keep the intensity going until then it can really serve a purpose in halting the thing. So when you see diminuendo, you have a long way to go. Save it so that it's more of an effect, okay? And also, don't lose the pulse. There is no slowing down here. And when you have, like, if you start slowing down, we have no clue what's happening because there's no beat anywhere. If it were, if I had something to hold on to, fine, but I don't. And if you're gonna take time here, it might as well be John Cage entered the room and is playing some. I mean, really, like there's absolutely no orientation here. It says un poco meno, a little bit less. So it's basically the same pulse, just more relaxed because something else is happening. If we all of a sudden go into a completely different sphere, you lose the listener. Okay? And keep going. There's good. Yeah, good. Now you can relax. Good. I mean, you can relax, of course. Yeah. That's way too much. Okay, Liszt didn't write each note. It's a little bit of this, right? And there are the rests actually. So it's a bit breathless, and we know why. Okay, so use your imagination. Each note. Yeah, much better. Good. Left hand still too loud. I don't hear the right hand. Yeah, and so if you maintain the intensity, then the dolce really will make sense. But if everything is always dolce, it loses. There has to be this variety. It shouldn't just be like a nice pillow. This isn't pillow music. This is very seductive, and there's a lot of tension here, right? things going on, so it's not relaxed. On the contrary, this is, and if ever, in the spaces in between the melody notes, this is when you need the most intensity to keep it going. This is not the time to relax at all. And now, good. Yeah, but still, don't lose the intensity. Better. A T, side. Good. You did this when you were playing as well. The first one was very good, and then the rest were, tia, tia, tia. If you repeat it 4 times, tia, 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 this is where it's going. So, of course, not with such an exaggerated rhythm, but keep it moving. Okay, so it's much better. You have that intensity, but now it's just very hectic. It sounds like you're rushing to catch a train. Like, intensity doesn't mean speed. It means how you're controlling the sound so that you don't keep dropping. You listen to someone like Richter, and he might play something at half the speed, but it's very intense because he never loses the direction, And even if you don't agree with the Schubert, which is really extreme sometimes in how slow it is, the intensity is always there, and that's a great case study in understanding how to maintain tension even when you play really slowly. So my point wasn't that you play it at the same speed as the opening. It can be agitato, it can be this, but you can do this even if you are playing more slowly, but maintain that intensity with the sound, okay? Also, your left hand is still too loud. You really need to be careful because, or either you play the right hand more, but the balance is a bit out of whack here, okay? Now, I played this piece like 15 years ago. Your taka-taka-taka-dam is always like 2 beats instead of 3. You're really rushing there. Yes, because yes. It was still so fast. Yes, it's hard. I still. You know,
just practice.
you have you practice that separately. And practice. Good. You get the point. Yeah, you know what to do. Okay. We have a couple of minutes. Just go from there. Yeah, actually, this is more of the same. Let me just see if there's one little thing I can. I mean, again, this stuff, the same kind of thing with the textures. It just gets really, really, really busy and just a bit indistinct as to what's going on, especially when you have this kind of strepitoso. Again, when you see Liszt putting all these pedal marks, it's gonna mean something different on this piano. So you just always take it with a grain of salt and try to control the textures. Otherwise, it just becomes too muddy. And that's not really what this piece is about, okay? You're doing a great job. And yeah, I think you know what to do here. So just keep taking it in that direction and it'll be great. Okay, bravo. Sure thing. Great. Thanks, everyone. Great job.
This would like to thank Nicolas for this wonderful wonderful masterclass. Also, thank you, Bonus, for continuing collaboration. And also thanks to the tech guys for making this all happen so that our people can take part of this from a distance. And have a great evening. Thank you.